A Redditor wants to know whether or not they're a jerk for gossiping about a person who's potentially lying about giving birth. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for soaking my underwear in my sink? I, 37-year-old female, use a combination of menstrual cup and period underwear for my menstrual cycle. Sometimes when I'm done with a pair of underwear, I'll rinse them out before washing. Other times I let them soak for a little while in my sink first. Last night, my husband asked me if there was an alternative to me leaving my underwear in my sink. We each have our own sink. He said he considers it unsanitary. I asked him why it's a problem since he has his own sink, and he didn't really have an answer, but just kept saying it's unsanitary and said he wouldn't soak his dirty socks in the sink. His preference is for me to get a separate container, presumably from our kitchen, and soak them in the tub. I think he just doesn't like to see blood because the solution doesn't strike me as more sanitary. I reminded him that I also rinse my cup in the sink and don't see that as any different, nor do I see it as any less sanitary than spitting into the sink, which of course we both do when we brush our teeth. He said, "Well, I don't poop out of my mouth," to which I replied, "And I don't poop out of my you-know-what." He says underwear covers an area where poop comes out, so it's unsanitary to leave them in the sink. I started to say something about not having poop on my underwear, but he accused me of trying to start a fight and ended the conversation. In case it matters, when it's time to clean the bathroom, I'm the one who does it 95% of the time, both sinks included. So am I the jerk for soaking my underwear in my own sink? So I think it's fair enough if he says it grosses him out because that's just him being true, just being honest about it. That said, he should be able to see the situation for what it is and try to find some kind of workable compromise. In my opinion, I think the only way OP would be the jerk here is like if they were leaving stains all over the place or like encroaching on his space in any way with this. Like, I kind of get it. Nobody wants to go brush their teeth right next to a soaking pair of period underwear, but like you kind of have to do what you gotta do. But wait, that Nevermind commented, "I'd get a fancy glass container, a special shelf, and maybe some twinkle lights. Make it a macabre art installation." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for hiding my expensive shampoo and conditioner for my friend's guest? I, 28-year-old female, share an apartment with my friend, 34-year-old male. Last weekend, while we were away, he invited his female friend Sarah to stay over. When we got back, I noticed she had used most of my shampoo and conditioner without asking. I had splurged on those expensive products to treat myself. I also make a lot less money than my friend. Today, Sarah came over again for a visit and asked to shower at ours before heading to a dance class. However, I'd taken my expensive products to my room this time, leaving only my friend's basic shampoo out for her to use. When she couldn't find the conditioner, she asked my friend, who came to my room to ask me about it. I told him that she's his guest, and it's not my responsibility to provide spa products for her. My friend got mad and thinks I'm rude and petty. Am I the jerk? Can anybody in the comments explain to me how OP could possibly be the jerk here? Like, I don't want to hear the start of anything about hospitality when OP's not the one being hospitable. OP didn't invite their friend's friend over and invite them to have a shower. Also, what do you call a friend of your friend that you're not necessarily friends with? Is that just like... Maybe I can't remember like a blatantly obvious answer, but for some reason, what's popping into my mind is Frozens. Mizzo2 commented, "Ask your roommate how much the products cost. Laugh in his face when he thinks it's like men's shampoo that's $5. I say this as a man, not the jerk. Also, I get having a quick shower to freshen up, but who does a whole shampoo and condition before going to a dance class? That's just going to drop a bunch of sweat into their hair anyway. Not the jerk times 2. Our next story is, am I the jerk for getting my girlfriend a birthday gift she hates? I feel like this is kind of overreacting, but maybe I'm just wrong. My girlfriend's, 26-year-old female, birthday was coming up, and I wanted to get her something really nice. I've noticed throughout our whole relationship that she does her makeup on the floor in front of a mirror, and it always looks so uncomfortable. She's complained of it several times, so I decided it would be a great idea to get her a vanity set. I did some research and I found a couple she would like, but I knew she was picky, and so I asked her if she was planning on buying a vanity set ever. She showed me the vanity set she wanted, and I made sure to add that set to my Amazon list. A few months went by and I was ready to buy the set, but I come to find out that it was sold out. I desperately looked at other sites and the manufacturer, but the set would not come for over a month after her birthday. Keep in mind that I decided to buy it a month before, so it wasn't last minute. I still felt bad, and so I decided to spend some time researching what set to buy. I finally came across one that matched the style and color of other furniture that she had purchased, and it was more expensive than the one she wanted, so I bought it thinking she'd like it even if it was the one she didn't ask for. I was wrong. My girlfriend's birthday finally comes around and she goes off to her sister's while I spend 2 hours building the set right after work. When she finally comes home and I show it to her, I could clearly tell something was wrong. She was quiet and didn't seem too happy. She then started bawling her eyes out, saying that she hates it because it wasn't the one she wanted. I explained to her that I couldn't get the one she wanted yet, but if she didn't like it that much, I could wait for it to come back and buy it and sell the one I just bought. That only made her more mad and upset. She then went on a rant about how she hates birthdays and that I shouldn't have gotten her anything. Again, this vanity set matches everything else she likes and it wasn't some cheap set. She told me to simply sell the set and keep the money because she does not want anything from me on her birthday. Am I the jerk for getting her the wrong set? So I personally think OP's not the jerk here. I think they did really try their best. I'm curious if you guys in the comments would agree with me, but I feel like there has to be more to the story going on here. Like, I feel like the girlfriend's reaction here is so sharp and so bitter. It has to be influenced more in some way from something. Whether that's pure selfishness because they can't see the efforts OP did go to, or potentially something else just about the relationship lingering around. Forsythia commented, "Not the jerk, her reaction is ridiculous, rude, and so ungrateful. This is not how a mature adult behaves upon receiving a gift they don't love. I suppose I could understand her feeling disappointed. You know inside her head that it wasn't the exact one that she wanted, but then you offered to get that one and that still wasn't good enough? She's the jerk here." Chronocidal Orange commented, "This is literally how a spoiled toddler would respond, just instantly crying because it's not what they wanted. Except that they actually come around after the first few minutes and realize that they do like the current gift they got. That's my experience with my nephews anyway." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not giving the dollhouse I built to my niece, but to my wife as a gift? It's not a dollhouse, but I didn't want anyone to think I was being misleading on purpose by saying I built a house. I, 28-year-old male, made my wife, 28-year-old female, a replica of a house that's known to fans of a musician, but wouldn't mean much to others. It's about 2 feet tall and wasn't very complicated to build, but my wife had said a few times over the last year that she thought it would be cool to have for her little trinkets. She's like a crow with her trinkets. I love it. She didn't know I was making it for her, but I did sneakily involve her in its creation through having her make a couple TikToks when we were out together so I could get the colors right. She has no idea. I was excited, so I showed a picture to my brother. He told me it was cool but didn't get the purpose. He showed it to my niece, Ava, 13-year-old female, who knew what it was and said she wanted one too. My brother asked if I would give it to Ava for her birthday. I said no, it's for my wife, but I could make one with Ava. It would help teach her some basic woodworking skills, which they don't do in schools here anymore. I'd like that. Brother said if it was so easy, then I could make a second one for my wife and just give this one to Ava since her birthday is at the end of the month. Again, I said no, this was done specifically for my wife. He seemed to accept that, but then came back to me and said, "Isn't it a little weird to make a dollhouse for an adult woman?" I told him it's not a dollhouse, just a fancy shelf. He argued that makes it worse because Ava would actually play with it. He must have gone on to complain to mom about it. He is the younger brother because mom called me to tell me that it was stupid to give my wife a dollhouse. I tried to explain that it's not a dollhouse, but she just kept saying, "That's stupid." This weekend I was at their house and Ava kept bringing up the house and laying it on thick with statements like, "I've always wanted one just like it." She kept asking why my wife wanted a dollhouse. I said it's not a dollhouse, but she kept asking why she needed a dollhouse. I told my brother that he was encouraging his kid to be manipulative and I really didn't like it, so I was going to leave. He told me that I was dangling the house over her head like McDonald's and teasing her, and that it made me a bad uncle. Being a good uncle is important to me, and I do feel for the girl because she's a big fan too. I admit I have a blind spot for this because I don't have kids and maybe I shouldn't have shared the picture with my brother to begin with. Am I really the jerk for not just giving it to her? Yes, it was easy to make and I could make another quickly. I just don't see how OP could be the jerk. I mean, OP, first of all, only shared it with their brother. So how in any way can the brother say, "Come on, OP, you're dangling this over their head like McDonald's"? Who was the one who A, showed her? Who was the one that B, planted in their head maybe they can give you one or make you one? C, is encouraging them to continue to pester you about it. OP's talking about the 13-year-old girl being manipulative. How about the brother sandbagging OP and trying to guilt them into it? Amoa Maria Maviamadis commented, "I'm guessing the dollhouse is a replica of the lover house? If it's anything like I'm imagining or what I've seen online, it's more like a fancy storage display for her Taylor Swift memorabilia rather than a toy anyway. Not the jerk in either case, OP. It's your creation that you get to gift to whoever you want." Our next story is, am I the jerk for asking my wife to pour our daughter's pee down the toilet? Hello, internet. I'm hoping you can help me resolve a minor low-stakes domestic dispute. We're at the stage of potty training our daughter where she uses a little squatty potty with a removable reservoir. I learned today that when it's just pee, my wife has been emptying it into the kitchen sink. I find this more than a little gross, and would very much prefer she empty it down the toilet in the powder room roughly 10 feet away from the kitchen sink as I do. Her argument is that the sink is where dirty things go and is already kind of gross besides, and some pee isn't any worse than the food scraps, etc. that are in the strainer basket. For me, bodily fluids are in a completely different category from food scraps, and should be going down the toilet. Am I off base here? You know, I was thinking about this and my initial reaction was, I don't know if I would be that bothered by it. I started thinking about how once you do it, you just rinse the sink out and it's probably pretty clean. But I started thinking further about it's the kitchen and the inevitability of when you're pouring something out, particles going places that aren't just directly down the drain. Like, even with the most care and control, you're introducing needless pee particles into the kitchen. Like, it's the place where you make meals. The next time I go and use a colander when I'm making spaghetti, I don't want to have to think about how pee has recently probably been here. Existence Raisin commented, "Not the jerk, that's just gross. The kitchen sink is not supposed to be dirty, and the place for pee is in the toilet. Would she be okay with you peeing in the sink instead of the toilet?" Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law my father-in-law doesn't owe her a house? When my husband and I got married, his parents, divorced but still best friends, bought us a house as a wedding gift. I think it's relevant to say that my husband and I have been together since we were in high school, and his parents are good friends of my family. My father-in-law has been remarried since my darling husband Lee was in middle school, and his new wife, let's call her Patty, brought along a daughter Lee's age into the marriage. I'll call sister-in-law Eli for simplicity's sake. Eli has always had an involved dad and doesn't have a father-daughter relationship with father-in-law. Her dad is well-to-do but has 5 other kids, so he's not able to be as generous as my father-in-law is with Lee, who's an only child. Eli's getting married in a month, and she came over out of the blue yesterday to rant because she found out that father-in-law isn't getting her and her fiance Dora a house for their wedding present. Lee and I listened to her and Dora rant, but Lee got upset and had to excuse himself after Dora started mentioning that father-in-law might be homophobic. I told them plainly that they were being ungrateful because father-in-law is covering their 2-month-long honeymoon expenses and paying for a portion of their wedding. He only did the latter for Lee and I. I also added that father-in-law and mother-in-law paid for the house together, so it wasn't all him. And that Patty didn't help whatsoever despite being Lee's stepmom. But that's not relevant, I guess? Dora and Eli both got mad at me and said I was defending a bigot and stormed out. And since then, I've been asked not to come to the wedding. Patty sided with Eli and is now not on good terms with my father-in-law, who's upset and feels like his contributions aren't being appreciated. So am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she's not owed a house? I don't buy the whole homophobic or bigot thing because they're not buying them a house. I don't think OP's the jerk here, and honestly, I think it kind of sucks that OP even finds themselves in the middle of this whole thing. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to do any more wedding planning as my 25-year-old female, fiance, 30-year-old male, does a U-turn on venue? So I totally agree, weddings are super expensive and I wish it cost less money too. However, this is the average cost of a venue in our country. So unless we made it super basic, which is something that neither of us want, that's the only way it's going to be cheaper. The reason I'm getting upset by this is because over the years, he's given so much money away to his family and ex while we were together, and always said that it made him feel good, even if they don't need the money, he feels good giving it. Like some sort of hero complex or something. Then cut to our wedding, and all of a sudden he's feeling bad about spending money on it. Am I wrong to be offended? I don't know. We are both equally paying for the wedding, by the way. I feel kind of all over the place on this one. Like, I feel like OP's not the jerk, but I also don't think it's like crazy for him to feel like maybe a venue is too expensive, but like his past behavior kind of goes against that. I would just hope that OP's actually certain about going through with marrying this guy if they're having these concerns now. Feeling Squirrel 9277 commented, "Cancel the wedding. There are so many red flags, it's like a period party here. Giving money to your ex is crazy without a child in the picture, no matter how good the relationship is or how well it ended. Anyone constantly giving family money is a walking bulletin board for someone who will put others above you and your needs. Seems like the type to get walked all over by family and friends. If he can give money elsewhere but not to the person he's supposed to care about for the rest of his life, where does that leave you if you want to take a trip, splurge on something nice, have real needs? Also sounds like he's not as financially stable or intelligent as you may assume, which will 100% lead to issues in the future." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not giving my ex back a gift I received from his great-grandmother? I, 23-year-old female, and my ex, 22-year-old male, have been broken up for just about 3 years now. For context now, we had a child together in our relationship and we're both currently in new relationships. His new girlfriend is pregnant with his second child. Recently, I received a message from my ex asking for a stone-carved pregnant elephant that was gifted to me by his great-grandmother 5 years back. His grandmother sadly passed a year back and he's currently asking for it back. I asked him firstly why he wanted it back, as it was a gift for me during my pregnancy. A bit more context, we visited his family and his grandmother had elephants everywhere in her home. I made a comment about how beautiful her collection was, as some of them were very unique. She lit up and insisted I take one as a welcome to the family present. I tried to politely tell her I would feel horrible to break up her collection, but she kept insisting. At this point, I didn't want to be rude and said okay and walked around with her as she told me stories of how she got some of the elephants. Anyways, we stumble upon the stone-carved elephant with a carved-out tummy with a baby inside. She heavily implied that my choice should be that specific elephant as it fits the situation perfectly, me being pregnant and all at the time. I smiled and accepted and thanked her for letting me carry a part of her collection with me. She gave me a hug and accepted me into part of the family. My ex, who I guess got a bit jealous, wanted to pick out an elephant of his own, so he got to do so. Back to current day, he told me due to the passing of his grandmother, he wanted to have the elephant to put with a gift he got with his great-grandfather so that they could both be together. When I asked him why he specifically wanted mine, he kept dodging the question and said it belonged to his grandmother and it being a gift from her to me held no value. I reminded him that he got to choose his own that day. He dodged that too, calling me selfish and a lowlife. Part of me is more than willing to give it back to him, but part of me knows that he's going to gift this elephant to his new girlfriend because of her new pregnancy. I say this because I know his narcissistic and manipulative personality. Why would he ask me now and not a year ago upon her passing? Am I the jerk? That elephant belongs to OP. If they don't want to give it, they're not the jerk. If they do want to give it, they're not the jerk. If they want to go out of their way to especially make sure that they never give it back because they know it's going to be regifted, OP will never be the jerk. That's your pregnant elephant. Wayward Marauder commented, not the jerk. That elephant was a gift to you to honor your pregnancy and a lovely family heirloom that can then be passed down to your child from their great-great-grandmother. This next story is, am I the jerk for paying for one daughter's wedding? I, 45 female, am married to John, 50 male. We have 2 daughters, one together, Hannah 25, and another one from a previous relationship, Alexa 30. Alexa is older and always got everything new, and Hannah always got the hand-me-downs. She never had much of her own things, so I wanted to make her wedding special. Both of the girls have gotten engaged. I told Hannah I would pay for her wedding. I've been saving her whole life. Alexa asked John if he and her bio mom would be paying for her wedding, and he said no. He said she should have a wedding that her and her fiance can afford. The girls went to get lunch the other day, and Alexa found out that I was paying for Hannah's wedding. Alexa called John crying that it's unfair I'm paying for Hannah's wedding. John thinks we should split the money evenly between the two girls. I told him no because I was the one who had been saving the money. I told him if he'd like to pay for Alexa's wedding, then he should speak with her mother for them to see how much they could help. John asked if I would be willing to give any money that's left from Hannah's wedding to Alexa. I told him no, I was giving Hannah the whole account and she could spend the money on what she wants. Am I the jerk? Update: Hannah told her fiance what had happened. Hannah's fiance is an only child and his parents said that they would pay for half of the wedding. I told Hannah the money is still hers and she can use it for the other half and to use the leftover money towards a house. Her and her fiance are very grateful. I told her that tomorrow I'd go talk to someone about getting the money in a trust of some kind in her name, since right now it's in a savings account with both of our names. I mean, when you just consider the way Alexa grew up and the things they had and having both of their parents still in the picture, it's not crazy that OP would only want to finance their biological kid's wedding. I mean, chances are OP is the stepmom, they just never really had that level of relationship with Alexa to kind of warrant that. Our next story is, am I the jerk for getting a teacher to fix an incorrect question on a quiz and taking a classmate's first perfect score away? My 16-year-old female bio class recently took a quiz, and when we got the results back, a classmate, we'll call her Vivian, not her real name, got a 100 and told the whole class that it was her first 100 on any assignment in the class all year. She mentioned that she put one answer for a certain question, but had gotten a different answer and was almost positive that my answer was right based on the work I did during the quiz. A group of friends in class also got the same incorrect answer, so we went to the teacher to ask her to explain. After working through it with us, the teacher determined that her original answer in the key was incorrect, and she decided that she would regrade everyone's quiz, meaning Vivian would get a 95 instead of a 100, and my grade would be raised to correct for the error. I thought that was the end of it, but now Vivian's repeating this story to everyone she can, blaming me for taking her 100 away because I wanted a perfect score so badly. She's also placing the blame entirely on me, even though 3 other people also raised the same concern to the teacher with me. Am I the jerk for raising it with the teacher? Is Vivian because she's repeating and misconstruing what happened? Or is it my teacher for taking points away for her error? OP's not the jerk. I would absolutely just not even give the time of day to Vivian here. But if I was petty enough to, I would just keep repeating, well, did you actually get the question right? I'd probably be saying things just solely to rile Vivian up, like, well, you should have just put down the right answer instead. AVM commented, not the jerk. She didn't get the answer right, so she shouldn't have gotten a 100. Plus, multiple people got points off even though they had the correct answer, and multiple people went to the teacher. Vivian shouldn't be blaming you, and the teacher should look over her answer keys before grading. Our next story is, am I the jerk for gossiping with my mom about my brother's fiance potentially lying about giving birth? I, 22-year-old female, have an older brother John, 32-year-old male, who's been with his fiance Jane, 30-year-old female, for 4 years. They have a 4-month-old. Jane found out she was pregnant at 5.5 weeks and immediately called my mom to tell her. Mom was confused but still very excited. Jane said that he was going to tell John when he got back from his work trip. A few hours later, she called again, sobbing, saying she has insatiable cravings. Mom made a joke like, isn't it a bit early for cravings? And Jane went off on her. She started yelling about how this was her pregnancy and no one else's. It was an odd reaction. She also apologized for her outburst by blaming it on hormones. When my brother returned from his trip, him and Jane left to stay at her mother's, and we didn't see her until after the baby was born. John said this was because Jane was afraid of losing the pregnancy and wanted to be with her mom, and we needed to respect boundaries. Whenever someone would ask about Jane or the baby, they would shut it down with vague answers like, every pregnancy is different, or she's carrying small, which isn't unusual. They barely shared anything about the pregnancy. No ultrasound pictures, no baby shower, and Jane didn't want anyone around during the delivery. I also discovered that every craving she listed came from one article about pregnancy cravings. She even listed multiple items in the same order as the article. When the baby was born, we were finally allowed to see Jane and John, and baby of course. It was very bittersweet, as we all wished we could have been there for Jane to help out. But Jane and John both reassured us that we did help out by staying away during the pregnancy. The weirdest part though is how Jane describes the birth. She claims she had an epidural via IV drip into her hand. Edited because I didn't elaborate, which is not how those are administered. When I asked clarifying questions, thinking she had gotten confused, which is understandable, she shut down and refused to answer, like how she would during the pregnancy. She said the baby had latching issues because he was born with no umbilical cord stump. This can technically happen, but it's a rare and fatal medical condition that their baby does not have. The final straw was when she told us that the baby basically fell out of her within an hour of being in labor, despite my brother telling us how hard the birth was, and even stating that was why they weren't going to try for any more kids. Mom is on the same side as me and has been noting these inconsistencies and inaccuracies but doesn't know how to bring it up, and their reactions don't help. A few days ago, my brother texted Mom saying her doubt of Jane is disrespectful and they both want full apologies from the both of us for bullying Jane about her pregnancy/labor. I haven't made any outright accusations about it, nor have I said any of this to Jane. I've only asked questions when she brings the birth or pregnancy up. Am I the jerk for having doubts? So, gossiping about it, talking between you and your mom about it, honestly, I think it's gonna happen. That said, I think OP and their mom also have to accept these people seem very private or maybe even secretive about the circumstances around their baby. However, that does not mean that OP or their mom are entitled to understanding the full scope of what happened, and nor do they have any kind of responsibility to answer whatever questions you're curious about. I don't think what OP did here makes them the jerk, but if you get to the point where you're calling them out on it and questioning them, and they clearly don't want to talk about it, then you would be. Ambitious Border 906 commented, "The reality is that nothing much adds up, but there is one reality you can buy into. Your brother and his fiance have a baby that is theirs. You can remain out of their lives forever, or let your obsession go and enjoy your niece or nephew. Your choice, but you would be the jerk if you chose option 1. Our next story is, I purchase all of my sister's OF content. Am I wrong? As the title says, I purchase all of my sister's OF content, a paltry $200 to $500 every 2-ish weeks. For obvious reasons, this is a throwaway. Now let me explain. I am extremely well off. I make upper end of the 6-figure bracket. My sister, however, has been struggling. She has a young child with another on the way. Her boyfriend tries to provide, but he just doesn't have the income to support them in a meaningful way. In starts, my sister's OF she started before the first child was very vocal about it. I ignored it for the most part because I didn't care. When she found out she was pregnant the first time, I worried about both their financial situation, and frankly, my sister is more than a few crayons short of a Crayola pack. I initially offered to help financially, but she's decided that she doesn't want help and can do it on her own. So I decided to enlist the help of a friend, so I don't have to view the content, to use my money to subscribe anonymously and purchase all of the content she produces, thereby providing support and a little extra help without her knowledge. Obviously, I will never reveal I am her largest supporter. I have never seen any of the content aside from a few face pictures to confirm it was her account. I do this solely to help her and to help support my nephew since she refuses all help I offer. Is this wrong? I don't know. Does it feel weird as freak? Yes it does. Do I regret it? Not even slightly. All I can say is, going into a story that says, I buy all of my sister's OnlyFans content, my bar was extremely low on the humanity scale. And somehow, some way, this guy buying all of his sister's OF content managed to actually restore a little bit of that humanity. That said, I don't know if I would be thrilled about even my friend having to go and buy all that stuff, and obviously they're going to see it. I mean, I guess that's a good friend. Snoodles commented, "This is so wholesome even though the post has a disturbing title. I'm sure there are other ways to assist like trusts and such, but for anonymous, instant, short term, why not? Take it to the grave though." OP responded saying, "I've set up several trusts for each of the children, both for financial stability and college if they decide to go down that route. My sister, however, will never have access to these accounts." Our next story is, Am I the jerk for declining to invite a woman who's called herself a total klepto into my home? I joined a women's social club 6 months ago because I've been struggling to make friends after relocating to a new-to-me city. It took me a while to warm up to the group and to connect with people I actually had anything in common with. I had to wade through a lot of Botox parties and boozy brunches to find things I was interested in, but I did, and I started coming to group events fairly often. I hang out most often with the women who like to read, do crafty things, bake, skywatch, etc. Among these women is one, I'll call her Andrea, who's made several comments about how she's a total klepto. I think she makes these comments to seem cool to the other people in the group. I reached out to some of the women I see regularly at these events and invited them over to my place to watch a TV show we'd been talking about and do crafty stuff. They were excited and agreed to come. Unfortunately, Andrea found out. I assume someone asked if she was going and reached out to ask me if she was invited. I considered this for a bit and then told her no, as I only had so much room at home. She didn't believe me and asked for the real reason, saying, "I thought we got along," which, yes, is true. I told her I'm not comfortable inviting a kleptomaniac into my home, that I've worked hard to have the things I have, and it would be stupid for me to invite her, knowing that she openly brags about it. She said, "Okay," very quietly. She then said, "You're painting me out to be some horrible criminal when you don't even know anything about me." I said that her being proud to call herself a klepto was all I needed to know. She said that I was a high school mean girl and ableist. I'm unsure what the foundation for that statement is. This unfortunately is spilled over to the group, which is frustrating. But what has me the most surprised is that there are so many people defending her and telling me that I'm out of touch and take things too literally. Am I? I don't know about this one because, at least they came out and said, "Oh, well, I'm a klepto." It's not like something where you're gonna find out after the fact. But I can't really blame anybody for not wanting to invite somebody who openly also says, "Yeah, I am a klepto." Almost in a way, it feels like an endorsement on that side of their behavior. I think it might be one of those situations where it just hurts on both sides of it, intentionally not inviting somebody that especially is part of the greater friend group. And on the flip side, not getting invited because of things you said about yourself, but still not the jerk. Tipsy Boo commented, "Not the jerk. Being a thief isn't the same thing as being a kleptomaniac or a klepto. One of the key factors of diagnosing kleptomania, which is a legit rare mental health disorder, is the roller coaster of emotions about the theft. A kleptomaniac will not tell virtual strangers that they've stolen because the shame is physically painful to them. Andrea is the ableist for rebranding kleptomania to justify her poor behavior. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.